The feature part of this video is going to be the wet sand foreground, but I really have to set the stage for that by doing the rest of the painting. I've wet the sky right to the horizon, right over top of those distant hills. This is a little very thin wash of cadmium orange on white paper, just to get it to give it a bit of a glow in what's going to be kind of a cloudy, overcast sky with a bit of cobalt blue mixed into that orange to get this gray. I want to keep it a fairly light sky, even though it's cloudy. I don't want a real stormy look to it. And yeah, the brush is pretty dry. I don't want it to be a wet brush going in there, really wet, because the water will cause a blossom, wash away what I've done. Just keep it nice. Don't lose all of the whites. That's always a danger. Now the sky is dry, so this wash that I'm putting on the hills is not going to bleed. It'll give me a hard edge. So the paper has to be dry for that to work. This is a little too dark. I'm going to just fade it a bit so that otherwise it's not going to look distant. I'll leave that dark shadow side, like the light's coming down from the top left, so it'll be a little lighter over here. That's just about a number 6 synthetic round brush. It's not really, I don't use any sable brushes. These are cheap and come to a nice point. And if I lose them, it's not a big investment. Now, I'll just, even with a smaller brush, just put in a little bit of detail. I want your attention to stay towards the center, and our eye will just automatically go to detail and higher contrast. So I'm putting a few finer trees in here, increasing the darks just a little bit, but it kind of fade into the misty island here. Now a little bluer mix for the ocean, just to separate it. Keep a sliver of light between the water and that island, and also little slivers of white to suggest the white caps, rough water out there. And this breaking wave just gets close to the shore. And a little bit of pattern in the foam. Same combination, only I've got a bit of burnt sienna in ultramarine blue now for the rock. Just kind of monkeying around here until I get the right mix. It's dry paper so that there's no danger of it bleeding into the surrounding area. I want a bit of spray coming up in front of this rock. I can get it. get it to work. And more burnt sienna, a little warmer dark here for this big rock in the foreground, just to help it come forward. And I want a dark edge on the front of this foam. Give it a little bit of thickness. It's just the same ultramarine and burnt sienna, but just a little more blue in the mixture to get that gray. Now that's dry, and I'm going to wet the whole bottom portion here. This is just going to be sand, wet, all wet sand in the foreground from the previous waves. Even that out. This looks dark, but it's actually going to be the lightest part of this the sand, the bluest part too, I hope. Thinking that the sand is going to be wetter close to the water and a little drier as it comes down towards the foreground. A little darker. Just putting a bit more ultramarine and burnt sienna into the mix. And I want just a bit more burnt sienna to sort of give a hint of what's going on in the sky, but also the dry sand. Now a reflection, just a suggestion of the reflection of that rock. It's not going to be like as if on calm water, but you'll see some effect from it. And I wipe this brush and just put a little bit of surface on the wet sand, lift a little bit off. And final touches, this is about a 1/4 inch flat brush, just putting a little bit of reflection where the foam is kind of flipped up, where it's a little darker. I know it's a really subtle thing, but it just adds that little extra bit of shine to the wet sand. And we need a couple of horizontal strokes here to just make it look flatter. You can play around with this too much, but I think less is better.